One of the main reasons why I'm personally shooting with a Sony camera is not because like Sony is superior in any way or that it's the best brand on the market, but it's more like it does provide me with everything that I want to have as a photographer and videographer in one single tiny package. And one of the things that I really like about Sony's current lineup is the lenses that are available for the E-mount, because there are so many different lenses. And Tamron just released the 70-180 that is an F2.8 all the way through the entire zoom, and this is what I thought we should talk about in this video. The Tamron 28-75 has been one of the lenses that I've used the most ever since I bought it I think it was 2.5 years ago, and it has been a true workhorse when it comes to like doing client work, when it comes to shooting YouTube videos, B-roll, you name it. I've been using it for everything, and there is a couple of downsides with that lens, and it does feel like it's starting to get a little bit old, but considering the price point of that lens, it's just insane. And I think it was like around a year ago, Tamron released the 17-28 f2.8 lens that is also really good, and now they have released the 70-180 f2.8. So you're gonna have like the entire lineup with the Tamron lenses if you want to have that. But I've personally been using the 70-200 f4 for a long time. I think I bought this like 2 years ago. I personally like this lens a whole lot, but I gotta say, it does have some competition. When it comes to the build quality of the lens, it does feel basically the same as the 28-75, and it does have this like cheap plastic casing all the way around lens, but it's also a way to keep the weight down, and the weight comes in at 810 grams, so it's not like super heavy, but it still feels like a pretty solid lens. I mean, like when you have it mounted to your camera, it will definitely feel like it's a little bit front heavy, especially when you're zoomed out. But that is mainly because of the lack of the counterweight in the Sony cameras rather than the actual lens. And as for the buttons, it doesn't have any AF buttons or OSS or anything like that. The only thing that you have is the lock button, so that you can lock the lens at 70mm so it doesn't creep away in your camera bag when you have it down there. Actually a pretty neat function that I wish the 28-75 did have as well. The focus ring is basically the same as the 28-75 as well, and it doesn't feel as smooth as the 70-200, which has a really smooth focus ring, but it does work, and you can definitely adjust the focus as you want it when you're shooting in manual. And as for the zoom ring, it does have this really big area that you can use to zoom in and out with. And it does feel a little bit more rugged than the 28-75 as well, but I don't know if that is because I've been using the 28-75 for so long, so it's still like a little bit torn out, or that this is actually a little bit more rugged. But if you know, I would love to know in the comments down below. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this type of zoom ring and focus ring, because I do like having like real rubber and making sure that you can actually like use the focus whenever it's wet and when like it's cold and anything like that, because it makes things so much easier. And this lens is also an extending barrel when you're zooming, so it does mean that it will get dust like sucked in to the lens, and that is a huge issue that I've had with the 28-75, because there is a lot of dust particles inside the front lens element, and during the time I've been using this lens, it has actually been some dust particles creeping into this lens as well, and that is something that you don't have with the 70-200 f4, because it's an internal zoom, so it doesn't like allow any dust to be sucked in. But then again, it's not something that will affect your images because it's so close to the front lens element, so it's not going to be visible whenever you take in photos, but it's something that you might want to keep into your consideration when you're buying this lens. One thing that Tamron has done really well with this entire lineup is that they do have a weather sealing gasket here in the back of all the lenses that is within this lineup, and that for me is really good because the 70-200 f4 is lacking the weather sealing gasket here in the back. So when you're using this in different conditions and going from like hot to cold, and you know, if it's raining outside, you don't have to worry about like any condensation getting into the sensor of the camera when you have it mounted. It's also something that shouldn't be that expensive to put on all the different lenses that is on the Sony lineup. The autofocus of the lens is also really good. It does perform just as a native Sony lens, and it's super fast. IAF works really good as well, and I did try it out with my son and been able to get a whole lot of shots on him, even though he's moving like a So now to the most interesting part, the image quality. Well, I gotta say, I'm really impressed by the image quality that this lens produces. Like, it looks really good, and it totally obliterates the background when you're shooting at 180 millimeters. It's gonna look like super separated and blurred out from your subject, which is something that a lot of people strive to have when they're buying a lens like this. And even though you have a little bit more reach on the 70-200, it doesn't feel like those extra 20 millimeters is something that you're missing when you're shooting with these lenses side by side. Like, I never felt that, you know what, I want to have 20 millimeters more on this lens whenever I was using this. There's gonna be like a little bit of trade-off depending on what you want to do with the lenses. And talking about trade-off, something that you don't get in the 70-180 is the OSS that you get in the 70-200, and that is something that is really good if you're shooting a lot of videos handheld, and if you're shooting something where you want the lens to be a little bit more stabilized, because even though the IBIS of the Sony cameras does a really good job of keeping the image steady, it does make a huge difference having the OSS built into the lens, and it does give you a more like smooth footage whenever you're panning and moving the lens around. So this type of lens is mainly aimed towards like portrait photographers, wedding photographers, landscape photographers, and sports and wildlife. So it's basically gonna be like a one lens to rule them all lens. And I mean, like, there's a reason that 16-35, 24-70, and 70-200 is one of the most used focal lengths when it comes to photography and videography, because they are covering the entire range that you usually might need whenever you're shooting any photos or taking any videos. Shooting any videos or taking any photos. So if you're shooting a lot of video and doing it mainly handheld, then I would probably go for something like the 70-200 f4, or even save up for the 70-200 2.8 G Master lens, which has the OSS. But if you want to have something that is going to be much cheaper than the GM lens and still have the 2.8 aperture, then this lens is really, really good. And I'm actually thinking about selling my 70-200 for this lens, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I guess we'll have to see. But I've had a really good time testing out this lens, and now it's time to send it back. So yeah, I gotta say goodbye, and thank you so much for watching. Really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, do hit that thumbs up, because, you know, it does make a huge difference. And if you haven't subscribed and you like the video, you might want to consider doing that, because I would love to see you in the next video. Pizza from, or no, wait, we're gonna say like Peter from Sweden. Au revoir.